Ciao a tutti, it's Laura in Italiano coming at you. Today we're diving even deeper into travel tips and trends for Florence, for Firenze, this amazing city we love so much. And whether you're planning your first trip to Florence in Italy or your 12th or 15th or 20th time in Italy and you really want to get around, I'm going to talk about the way things have changed in our post-COVID world. I'm going to talk about today's dining, getting around, shopping tips, things you might need to know, and things that you might want to look at in a different, fresh way. Anyway, if you like my vibe and you've been enjoying the content, you want to know more about Italy, especially today, Florence, Firenze, then follow along, my friends. Andiamo. So let's first talk about dining. I would say that generally we're looking for something that's a little quicker, a little more in and out, at least for lunch, perhaps, and maybe make dinner a more sit down. So anyway, the places that I'd recommend, I really like Cantinetta Antinori, which is in Piazza Antinori. You can do just a wine taste, a flight of wines. You can also do paired with food, and they have an outdoor courtyard and an inside, and it's almost like eating in a museum. So that's one of my favorite places as well. I will say for something quicker, everybody wants to go to Antico Vignaio, right? Most everybody's heard about it on social media. A lot of times people are posting it's one of their top places you have to eat in Florence. So it's good to know what it is and what it isn't. It's not a sit-down place. There's no restrooms there. It is like a deli, and it gets lines not only out the door, but around the block and down the street. In fact, they have their own pedestrian traffic, directing foot traffic, because once you get these amazing sandwiches, and they are really quite amazing. It's on Via dei Neri, one of my favorite streets in Florence. And if you're there, you got to go to Gelateria dei Neri. But yeah, so again, you're going to wait a long, long time. And then you have this amazing sandwich. They're more of what we think of as real good, loaded deli sandwich. Lots of not just meat and cheese and all the things, but condiments, right? It's a very wonderful big sandwich. Antico Vignaio is great, but the thing that always makes me laugh about Antico Vignaio when I'm walking on the Via dei Neri, whether I'm doing shopping or going to Gelateria or going to many other places, is, you know, you get this amazing sandwich finally, right? And you're standing in these long, long, long lines, and then you have nowhere to eat it except standing in the street or sitting on the curb surrounded by pigeons and garbage. There are lots of other places on the Via dei Neri, which I highly recommend. Just across the street from Antico Vignaio, down the street, up the street, are all kinds of little wine bars, enoteca. People just walk right by them because they all want to wait in line at Antico Vignaio. If you absolutely have to have your Antico Vignaio fix, I'd almost recommend you do it at the train station, because now in Santa Maria Novella, the huge international train station just across from the church of the same name, there is inside the train station an Antico Vignaio, and that's actually the one time I went there because I had to wait for a train, needed some food anyway, and I thought, well, I want to try these sandwiches, and they are amazing. Well, especially for a lunch, or if you've had a long day and you just want a shorter meal, perhaps just to sit down for a little bit and kind of cool your heels in anticipation of doing something else in the evening, going out to a nicer dinner, going to listen to music, going to whatever, go up to Piazza di Michelangelo above, looking down on the Arno and Florence. As you go over to the San Lorenzo market, stall after stall, it is kind of the companion to the covered market, the Porcellino market, which is over on the way to the Ponte Vecchio. But this San Lorenzo market, it's just stand after stand, lining the streets and the squares around the church of San Lorenzo, where you also find the Medici tombs. It is wonderful because, of course, they sell all the goods that they sell at every other stand. But then you also have the covered food market, which is a red rectangular building with green kind of Asian, Chinese-y decorative motifs. I think it was built during the time of Art Deco in the 20s, and that's why it looks like that. It is wonderful because you have on the ground floor, you have all the butcher shops and the cheese shops and the wine shops and the shops that sell all kinds of food, flowers, etc. Wine, of course. If you're a vegetarian or you're bothered by meat smells or fish smells, you're hit with that as soon as you walk in the door. It's kind of like going to Pike Place Market in Seattle, Washington. Anyway, if you go upstairs, they have a food court, which sounds odd, but it's wonderful. It's stand after stand of amazing Italian food. Joe Bastianich, the son of Lydia Bastianich, the chef, and he's been a judge on cooking shows in America and also in Italy. Joe Bastianich has a Texas-style barbecue stand there, and it's more than a stand. It's a little pop-up, right, of a restaurant usually, but Joe Bastianich has his place there, and I'll tell you, the pastrami is to die for. It is amazing. There's Wi-Fi there. There's different places where you can get drinks and fresh fruit and all kinds of food, so I highly recommend going there. Also, if you're looking for live music while you dine, the open bar, Golden View Open Bar, which is on the other side of the Arno River, you can walk across the Ponte Vecchio and you can actually see it as you're standing. If you're got the Uffizi behind you, look down, you can see the restaurant. It's right on the water. You can ask for a table with a view. Great drinks, as it said, open bar. That's a big part of their appeal, but the food is wonderful. It's very hip. It's more swank kind of experience with usually jazz music. Can get a little bit loud, but you could ask to be seated in the dining room that is not right there where the music is, and you can still very much hear the music, but it's got that kind of jazzy feel to it. I really like it. Now let's move on to how things are going in Florence these days with transportation. So for the most part, people walk around Florence, especially if you're staying in a hotel or an Airbnb or what have you, in the historic city center. Now, you can, in Italy these days, you can call for an Uber. Just know what you're, doing. If you're on your Uber app and you're calling for a driver in Florence, you're either going to get a taxi. That's the first option, is they're trying to push the taxis. Or a taxi, or what they call an NCC, NCC, which is usually, it's a private driver, but it's usually they're going to come in a black Mercedes minivan, which seems to be the vehicle of choice for the NCC. It will never be in a white taxi. An NCC is kind of the yin to the yang, or the other way around. Taxi's always white, NCC usually, again, black for whatever reason, usually Mercedes, but not always minivan or sedan. And so that's when you do your Uber, you can also call a private driver that way. Now, to the money grab, I have noticed in Italy and in Florence, unfortunately. I was at a pizzeria about a couple months ago, maybe, and I went over to Santo Spirito and had pizza. I will not name the place because we'll never go there again. One thing I noticed is when they brought the check, make sure when they bring you the bill that is itemized, because mine, it should have been about 18 euro. I literally had a pizza, I had maybe a lemon soda, and a bottle of water. Should have been about 18 euro. It came, there was no itemized, breakdown. It just said 35 euro. And I was like, really? So always ask to see an itemized receipt. Again, they're really just trying to make as much money as they can. So that going back to getting around with Uber and with taxis, that is definitely the way to go. And then another option that has come about in our post-COVID world that a lot of people seem to really like is the golf cart tours. I know they have those in the United States. We have them here in the United States. And it's funny because in Italy, they have very few golf courses. There's a couple in Tuscany where they have more land, but generally real estate is at a premium, right? We're talking about a country, the land, the land mass is about the size of the state of Arizona, with I think maybe 58 million people in Italy, if memory serves. So not a lot of space, not a lot of golf courses, but somehow now everywhere you go in Italy, you have these golf carts, which you can almost hail like a taxi. You can't hail a taxi on a curb like you can at home. You have to go to, again, a designated taxi stand. However, these golf carts, especially in Florence, a huge square like Piazza della Repubblica, where you have the arch in the background and in the foreground, usually year-round, they have this huge carousel. And so there's some benches towards the foreground of Piazza della Repubblica. Sometimes now these golf cart guys, because they're trying to drum up business, will just pull up. Otherwise, you have to book it online. Usually a company like Viator, you can book online ahead of time a golf cart tour. And people who want to avoid walking, because buses cannot be driving around the historic city center of Florence. The streets are too narrow, and they just have every year tighter and tighter traffic restrictions. So just keep that in mind. Now back to the money grab. I just was reading something about how they are going to be charging people or selling tickets to get into the Trevi Fountain in Rome. And it's a way to control how many people are trying to cram into the square, but it's also a money grab. In Rome, again, the Pantheon, up until this year, you could just walk in and out of the Pantheon. There might have been a line, but you could just walk into the Pantheon. Now you have to get a ticket, and it's €5. So it's not about the money, but it is a money grab, my friends. Let's talk about shopping. So, hey, I've been in Italy working this is my 25th season, and then I lived in Italy before that. But in Florence especially, Florence, yes, it's the cradle of the Renaissance. Yes, it has the Uffizi. Yes, it has the Accademia. Yes, it has amazing art everywhere you look. It has amazing churches. But for a lot of us, it is also a huge shopping city. And, Via dei Calzaioli, which is that big wide shopping street that basically goes all the way from just in front of the Duomo, between the Duomo and the Baptistry, all the way down to Piazza della Signoria, where you find, Palazzo Vecchio and the Uffizi. I like to go to just a few places, and I'll give you my little secrets. One of them is called Corso Donna, which is on Via del Corso, which runs parallel to the Via dei Calzaioli, the big shopping street. Via del Corso is narrower, has little boutiques. It used to have Sarah Pacini and some really nice upper end boutiques. Nowadays, it's a little more fast fashion, for sure. And this Corso Donna is absolutely fast fashion. And I hate to admit it, but yes, in Italy, sometimes I do that. So the clothes are made in Italy, look like the season's latest fashions, yada, yada, yada. It's full of tourists, a lot of, in fact, Spanish is kind of the primary language, even of the staff. There's not just one, there's one on Via del Corso. There's also another one over on, I think the street is Via por Santa Maria. It is the street that literally leads onto the Ponte Vecchio, and it's across from Lush, which is another one of my great, it's out of the UK, it's not Italian, but if I'm looking for bath bombs or fresh made face masks, you know, clay face masks and cleansers and eye cream and body creams and all of that, Lush. Fabulous. Anyway, it's across from Lush. There's another one, I don't remember the name, but you'll know there's at least 2 or 3 in Florence, and I found more in other cities, Siena, Rome, other places. 2 years ago, those clothes were, everything in the shop was €6. And then last year, I went and everything had gone up between 12 at the beginning of the season, and by the end of the season, it was up to €12. And then I went back and it is now up to, everything in the shop is €14. So again, it's fast fashion. Almost everything is one size, taglia unica, and this is a little caveat. I mean, I've got a pretty normal body. I'm not super thin, but I've got a normal body, okay? At least by American standards. Italian standards, not so much. So taglia unica one size is very much not the same as a one size in the United States. So everything is cut more narrow, everything is cut tighter, smaller, all of that, but you can find usually a cute, you know, some cute things, especially bottoms. The bottoms are size, and XL is more like between a medium and a large for what we're used to in the United States. Just keep that in mind. Some people are really into name brand things, yes, but a lot of people, you know, are also going to the department stores and that kind of thing. There's Rinascente, which is Piazza della Repubblica, which has Italian brand names, also have their own names, their own, you know, brand, the, you know, Rinascente brand, whatever they call it. They have good stuff. They're open all day. They have a nice rooftop garden. Otherwise, going down just a little bit on that would be Coeen, and that now is over in the granary down close to the Arno River, across from the back of the Uffizi. So open all day, a little bit lower end, but if you're looking for just some cute stuff to get you by, it's where a lot of Florentines would shop. There's, I seem, even lower than that level would be an OVS. And I do have to say, I've been known to find a few things at the OVS. And again, we all love the Italian name brands by all means. In fact, one of my favorites, it's not even clothing, but it's Santa Maria Novella, the pharmacy of Santa Maria Novella, which is like going into a museum, and that's just on Via della Scala, which is just down from, it's not in the church of Santa Maria Novella, it is down the street from there. I will say the last few times I've gone by there, walked by there, there was a line out the door, and they were only letting in a few people at a time because everybody wants to go and take pictures because it's been used in lots of films. It was used in Hannibal, the film, not the series. Over the decades, it's been used because it's got that dark wood paneling, and it's like an apothecary with these amazing terracotta ceramic, you know, designed, painted, glazed, beautiful designed apothecary jars, and it's just got this very amazing old world Florence feel. If you want to go shopping there and it still smells exactly as good, it's smaller and it's not the original one, but there's no line out the door, over by Via dei Tornabuoni on the way to the river across from Palazzo Strozzi, there is another shop, and I love this stuff. I mean, this is not product placement, but I mean, I got this in the spring. Did I get this in the spring? This is Rose Novella, which is my favorite. It's rosy, but it's not putrid. You know, sometimes rose goes putrid. It is fresh, and it's very Florentine. And it's got beautiful floral, but it's got a little bit more going on as well. Anyway, my favorite. So that's a little insider tip for you. Do know that I did see some graffiti and they hadn't gotten rid of it. I saw it in the spring, and then I went back in the late summer, early fall, and it was still there. Americans go home, F America, and that has to do with their somewhat right-wing government right now, and also maybe our politics. But for sure, they're going through their melting pot right now. In Florence, you're going to see the changing face of Florence. You know, it used to be Decades ago, when I first started going to Italy and Florence especially, everywhere you went, in the hotels, in the restaurants, were always Italian white men, for the most part. Sometimes women, but especially decades ago, it was mainly, especially in the restaurants and hotels, it was Italian white men. And nowadays you're going to see a lot of guys from Pakistan and Bangladesh and different places in Africa and ex-Eastern Bloc countries and Asians and all kinds of other people running the shops, managing the shops, doing the housekeeping at hotels, running the restaurants, cooking in the restaurants. The face of Florence is absolutely, absolutely changing, that's for sure. So that's what's going on, more than they just don't like Americans. They are getting, Florence for sure is, kind of inundated, like super saturated, like overly saturated. So that, my friends, is a little lowdown on some hot trends going on with Florence right now, and then more tips you have before you go visit a place, because again, when you're there, you have very limited time. No matter how long you're staying, it's always going to feel like limited time because you're always going to find more things to do and more things you want to see. And please like, comment, subscribe, share, get the word out that I'm on YouTube, my friends, and I ain't going anywhere. All right, take care. Grazie. Ciao, ciao.